Grab your popcorn and snacks. Find a comfy spot, take a seat or lie down, and let me transport you to a place of fantasy, ghost stories, ancient legends, odd creatures, alien encounters, and other magical topics. You may even decide to join the conversation. From faraway lands to your own backyard, with a small dash of pixie dust. Turn out the lights and open your minds. The journey is about to begin. Hey, welcome to tonight's show. We've got a really great show lined up for you. Guest isn't in the green room yet, but she assured me she'd be joining us at 6:30 or thereabouts, and it's 6:30, so I'm going to shoot her an email real fast. And I want to welcome everybody here. Let's see. There we go. Anyway, welcome. We are really getting closer to Thanksgiving, and I'm excited about it. Interesting. Okay. Anyway, I want to welcome everybody. We are getting closer and closer to Thanksgiving. I'm excited. I'm stoked. And I hope you are too. This is the first year that I am going to have a turkey. I'm going to have a turkey, but this is the first year that hang on, let me get this on. All right. We love doing this stuff during a show. Okay. Anyway, this is the first year that my turkey is like defrosted. Usually when I get them, they're frozen, so I'm up all night. I spend my whole night up all night, and I am, doing the water method to defrost. So I'm forever up and down all night long, adjusting the water levels and all that stuff for my turkey. I'm really excited to be able to just get up in the morning and plop it in the oven and get the turkey cooked. And then I'm going to be over at my friend's house for Thanksgiving this year and kind of traveling out and whatnot. But anyway, my name is Charlotte. I'm the host, and I'll be your host for the next hour of California Haunts Radio. You can find my paranormal team at www.californiahaunts.com. You can also find this show at www.californiahauntsradio.com. Oh my God, I blew it again. See that? Too many websites. You can find the radio show at www.californiahauntsradio.com. You can find the team website at www.californiahauntsradio.net. See what I mean? It gets confusing after a while. And we've got all our shows over there at the .com. In fact, right now, if you have issues with Facebook and you want to get somewhere that's a little more stable to watch the show and watch it live, you can do that from the website at the .com. So be sure to do that if you have issues with it. We have, like I said, we have a great show lined up. We have Laurie McDonald. She's from Sacramento. She's a hypnotist from here in Sacramento who works with alien abduction clients. And she also believes that somehow along the line that we're now living in an alternate timeline. So we'll see if she can get. There she is, and looks like she's coming in, so we can get her going or her camera to come in. But so I'm really excited to talk to her. I heard her on one of the other shows, and she had really cool stuff to say about that alternate timeline. So again, welcome, and remember Sunday evening at 6:30 we are going to be back on the air. I've been reading from Dickens' A Christmas Carol every Sunday, and it's been going really well. We're going into the 4th chapter now, where he meets the ghost of Christmas yet to come. And once we finish that, we'll see what the timeline's like, because I'm trying to read up. I was going to read up through Christmas, but I'm thinking I'll read up through New Year's. And maybe we'll slip into the Polar Express and the Mrs. Miracle book. And read it up, just so we have something going for the holidays. Looks like she's having trouble getting in the room. So, so we'll just see what happens. We'll just wait a little while longer for her. But yeah, if you want to sit down and grab some, popcorn or whatever, or hot cocoa, you might want to do that. And you can join me on Sunday sit by the fire, and we can tell stories. Or I can tell a story and, tell you about a Christmas Carol. California Haunts right now, we are doing really good. You guys have been doing really good with the numbers. And okay, cool. Well, Laurie's here. We'll give her a second to get settled. We'll give her a minute. It's all good. I see you. But again, we're doing really good with our numbers, and I have you guys to thank for it. Our podcast downloads are really up this month, and our YouTube subscribers are really good this month as well. But we still need more and more and more. We want to keep the YouTube thing going, and we need you guys to share these shows because we do have some really good programming on, just like our guest tonight. Because and that would really help us out a lot because we really want to hit the mainstream with this thing, and we're starting to go. If you Google California Haunts Radio now, you will come up with us on several different companies that are carrying us, including now iHeartRadio and TuneIn Radio. So we're starting to roll right along with this. And my partner, one of my business partners in this, Marisa, is also going to get us some business cards. We're going to be passing those out. Hello, Tiffany, and all that good stuff, along with Monica Funk, who's another business partner of mine, producer. And so we're starting to get the word out more and more in marketing. Anyway, Laurie McDonald is from Sacramento. She's a homegrown girl, just like me. I'm from Sacramento. So I'm looking forward to talking to her. And without further ado, let's bring her on. Hello.
Hi there. How are you?
Fine. How are you?
I am awesome tonight.
Hang on 1 second.
Sure.
Okay. All right. I got it fixed. It did a weird thing. I'm sorry.
No problem.
We're back. I see you now. You were just a little tiny thing on my screen.
So I'm a transplant. I'm actually from Ontario, Canada, and came to Sacramento probably in about 1982, and then traveled to some other states and then back again.
Oh, cool. Tell me about you. You're a hypnotist. How does one become a hypnotist and why?
I'm a clinical hypnotherapist.
Okay, I'm sorry, hypnotherapist. I apologize.
No problem. Some of the differences actually is a hypnotist might be used for something more like a stage performance for entertainment, whereas hypnotherapy is used for either behavioral modification, an opportunity to move past addiction. There's strong possibilities of memory retrieval, past life regression, but most importantly, it's highly effective in trauma, especially in a world where we're put up against situations where we have no reference points. If it's paranormal, extraterrestrial, or even the strange and bizarre pandemic, you find yourself in a situation you might never have been in. The subconscious mind has nothing to draw from, nothing to compare it to. People can often hit a wall and not know how to proceed in their healing. So what we do is we bypass all the logical thinking, because sometimes in therapy, you can talk till you're blue in the face. You logically understand cause and effect, why you're behaving in a certain way if something happened. But the emotional energy is not logical. It's rooted in the subconscious, and we can begin to allow that to become neutralized.
Well, I apologize again. I don't know why the hypnotist was stuck in my head. I apologize. You're a hypnotherapist. So, you obviously come from a clinical background, and most clinical backgrounds don't believe in anything paranormal. How is it you believe? How is it that you that you do the paranormal work?
I'm an experiencer, and seeing is believing. And there are some times after you rule out anything that's logical, maybe you hear a voice in your head. Now, is that an auditory hallucination? Is that some form of synthetic telepathy made by the government? Is that psychotronics, information being transmitted electronically into the mind, simulating a voice or your own voice? Or are you actually experiencing some form of communication, either paranormal or interdimensional or extraterrestrial? So it's up to us to really begin to rule things out and challenge our reality. What is real, what is not real, what is true, what is not true. I was wanting to be a psychiatrist when I was young. Then I thought, well, that's a little heavily medicated, maybe a psychologist. But then I went to a hypnotherapist and felt the transformation of moving out of an old energy for the first time. And I'd already done a lot of work, read a lot of books, but nothing really shifts inside until you move into the root of it. So I did it, I experienced it, I became very passionate about it. And now, to add to that, during a final exam, I had to regress someone in front of a panel of 4 judges. And he was looking for some creativity, because we can also seek for blocked or locked potential, that potential we sense inside of us, but sometimes don't meet or reach. So we were on an exploration of retrieval of that specific creative energy. And all of a sudden, when I asked him to just move back, he was 10 and on a camping trip with the family, and him and his brother were out exploring as boys will do. And they saw UFO land, they saw it open, they saw non-human entities leave. Well, I didn't see that coming, nor did our judges. When I went to ask him about the non-human entities, all of a sudden, a ball of light, like about the size of a softball, appeared at the forehead, zipped down his body, was gone. I looked over my shoulder, the judges, and 2 are like wide-eyed, and they saw what happened, and I'm indicating what, and they told me carry on. Obviously, I have somebody regressed. So when I went to ask him his next question, he had no idea as to the extraterrestrial event, and he was back seeking creative energy as if we had never left that vein of thought.
Whoa. Wow.
So,
Now, you yourself are an experiencer. Did that happen before you before you started your career or after?
No, it's sort of a family thing. As it turns out, my grandmother, my mother, father, all had experiences of some sort. My grandmother, back in 1939, came out of the farmhouse. It was late in the fall, and she was still going to hang some clothes up on the clothesline, and she had the basket sort of hooked on her hip. She came around the corner, and the cornfields were harvested already, so the crop was low, and there was a UFO hovering. And she held on tight to the basket, and she watched it, and she said it went up, wobbled sort of, and sped away. I asked her what she did next, and she said, of course, she held on to the laundry and hung it on the line, because the old wringer washers were hell. And she wasn't going to drop the laundry, but she just sort of put it in the back of her mind. And I'm surprised at that reaction. She sort of buried it. And then both parents, without my knowledge, had issues with phenomena. And my mother in particularly did, and it affected her in a way that she ended up putting me up for adoption. And it wasn't until I was 50 that I had filmed a TV show, and she was in Canada and saw it and called me up and said, hey, I had no idea the research, the support group that you run, and I want to tell you the story of your birth and why I couldn't raise you. And I was like, what? So called my husband over, and we had just come back from McKinley Park in Sacramento, and we were only a couple of blocks, and we weren't, too exhausted or anything. We sat down, we put the speaker on, and she proceeded to say how she had had these encounters during her pregnancy. Then after, she felt very uncomfortable with me, and she gave a very long, detailed story of what sounded like a classic abduction. But when she went looking for help, she was unable to find it. What propelled her to call me was the fact that I run support groups to help people understand and to question logically, follow specific protocols, uncover the information, because any extraterrestrial that's taking you against your will
Mm-hmm.
and coming in the night is not following the appropriate protocols, and those would probably be the ones that we wouldn't want to have contact with.
Mm-hmm.
So those were the ones that she had contact with. And because it upset her so much, I apparently was a constant reminder. She couldn't bond with me, and she put me up for adoption. And I had no idea why until I was 50, and couldn't talk to people, so she kept journals, and she asked me if I wanted to read what had happened to her, and of course I did.
That makes me wonder, because when you say, she was pregnant with you, I mean, obviously that's what they were fascinated by. I mean, could you have been maybe a star child?
Well, all humans carry extraterrestrial strands of DNA, maybe some more than others. I don't feel particularly different than anybody else. And I know a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people call themselves star childs and so forth. I do feel somewhat enlightened. I feel that I'm actualized in my spiritual journey, that I have an understanding of the cosmos and cosmology. And I know that the human is far more powerful and important than they know. I know that the human has an opportunity to evolve into something even better as we begin to heal from trauma, find the true spiritual self, align with our potential, become empowered in a way that allows us to progress peacefully. And all of those things are obtainable when we begin to decide how it is we want to be in the world. You can
Mm-hmm.
ask yourself questions. Is this how I want to be? Is this how I want to feel? Is this what I wanted to do? And if you're answering no to those things, then maybe becoming more aligned and understanding the true self and letting go of memories that are no longer helpful or serving the highest purpose in your life. Because there's a difference between your fate and your
Mm-hmm.
destiny. And we all have a destiny, we all have a purpose, and we all are equal, but individuals. So there's a lot of action in the world to disempower us. Hypnotherapy, I've found to be the most effective tool in allowing that integration, overcoming self-defeating thoughts, taking those first steps in self-mastery, learning how to understand your mind, your body, ultimately controlling both your mind. And if you're not controlling your mind, you
Mm-hmm.
can be assured someone else would like to do it for you. So we have to
Absolutely.
be aware these days. Things are
Mm-hmm.
different.
Things are a lot different now. When you talk about, and you're the second person I've heard say that, about the good aliens and the bad alien races. Where you're the second person this week I've heard talk about, if you're being abducted against your will, those aren't the right ones.
That's right.
What does that mean to explain to other people?
It means that we have fundamental, universal human rights. And as
Mm-hmm.
people begin to understand what they are, most people don't understand the definition of human. They don't know what the word people implies. Human, hue is the word we use to measure light. Man comes from the word manifestation, to come into the physical or to be embodied. Human, light embodied being is the definition of the type of entity we are. And when you know what you are, you're beginning to
Mm-hmm.
understand the multidimensional aspect of the human soul. Other entities who are not light embodied don't
Mm-hmm.
have a spiritual ascension like the human does. And so they
Okay.
would like to hijack our ascension by creating a hybridization. The truth is, their artificial intelligence is what is the downfall of their own civilization, the dimming of their own interior light. And without asking our expressed permission, they
Mm-hmm.
ultimately have no right. And so the more we claim our rights, the more we understand who we are, what we are, not only are we answering some of those fundamental philosophical questions that man has
Mm-hmm.
pondered for a millennium, we are standing in our power, and we are creating a boundary that says, you can't take me, you can't take my children, You can't generate fear. You can't lie to our kids and say you're their real parents, because you're creating that seed of discord in the nuclear family. And that's harmful to the psyche of that child.
Okay.
It's harmful to the psyche of a person to traumatize them. Now, are they bad? Are they evil? The answer is no. What they are self-serving. Their intentions are not to create fear. Their intentions are not to be malicious, or they're not nefarious by nature. They just don't care. They just don't care. They're not looking at us and valuing our life, because we don't value our life.
Okay. Okay.
So there are ones that seem beautiful or unconditionally loving. You might have a hard time differentiating between them and an angel, because characteristics are very similar. But it's really all about respect. Even in the paranormal world, you're dealing with discarnate entities.
Right.
There are protocols again and following. You don't want to open up all these doors and allow anything or anyone to come through. We have to be very careful and respectful of what little we really understand about the paranormal world. But I've been privileged to hear some of the most extraordinary EVPs, where I would ask the question and it would be answered on the tape recorder, and clear and concise, and no, not ambiguous at all, very clear. Now, however, again, we have to be very careful, because non-human entities lie. And they claim to be this or that, or more powerful than they are. And we have to be able to move through the appropriate questioning to ensure that we're not creating harm to ourselves or our environment.
Very interesting. Since you're an experiencer and you do work with other experiencers, is there a common thread that you found when you have put people under hypnosis to regress them, to talk to them about their experiences? Is there a common thread with people?
There are multiple commonalities among experiencers. There is different categories of the experience, whether it's a consciousness hijacking, like the soul is separated from the body, or whether or not it's a physical one. As some are in nature, they're designed to harvest genetics. Other abductions are to push the human to see what they'll do. So because we have adrenaline and we can be moved without thought to display superhuman strength, we can also be moved without thought to display superhuman psychic ability. And certain extraterrestrials, reptilians, greys in particular, are very interested in our ability to do this. I think they'd like to send little frequencies to block our ability to continue to develop in that area. But it's natural to the human to have this happen, or for the mind to mind over matter, basically, is when our thoughts are manifested outside of the laws of physics. And there we open the door into the paranormal, outside of our laws of physics, and we get to experience another realm of reality. But again, always proceeding with caution, because if we believe in the existence of angels, then we have to take into consideration a demon, as this third dimensional reality is the reality of duality, polarities, north, south, good, bad, so on. Of course, good and bad, primarily conceptualized ideas by people, but the highest vibrational frequency of all doesn't recognize bad or evil. There's just no harmony. There's no resonance. It's just not recognized. And so therefore, it has no effect.
I have a question in the chat room. How can a soul separate from the body?
All the time we do that. I have out-of-body experiences, astral travel, lucid dreaming. The consciousness is moving outside of the body. And what we realize is that we've still maintained that individuality. We still know who we are, and we realize that we are outside of the body. So out-of-body experiences, near-death experiences, all of these show that the soul exists without the body, hence light embodied.
Mm-hmm. Okay. My question here too is, you're an experiencer, and I always wonder about people like you or me, because I'm a newspaper reporter by trade. So, you're trained to observe things. I'm trained to observe things. So
Mm-hmm.
when you are taking a board, I mean, are you making mental notes on all this stuff, or do you forget after you come back?
Some people do forget, also by design. Some people have a recollection, and some people aren't affected by whatever psychotronics they're displaying. So whatever, they sort of mix or cross our brain waves, the delta and the theta brainwave. They try to simulate the sleep state so that we'll go along with them. We've heard of people moving through walls.
Right.
We've heard of the most unbelievable things, yet the commonalities among them. And I've been able to, travel to many countries and interview a number of experiencers on remote islands and jungles and metropolitan, cosmopolitan cities. And it doesn't matter what language we speak or what our spiritual beliefs are. We see that the consciousness moves out of the body. We see that there are other layers of life, other layers of reality. That observing them is very important. When you can move through that perspective of observing, you're sort of creating a barrier to not emotionally react to a situation, which generally will change the outcome of it.
Okay. And I wonder about this. I mean, people that do tend to remember this stuff always talk about them doing tests on people. What do you think those tests are for that they're doing?
Well, there's a lot of things. Like I said, psychism is one of them, but also the testing that they're doing, I think, is surrounding genetics. It has to do with that hybridization program, creating a human alien that can possibly integrate into our society. There are many people, experiencers included, who believe that there are extraterrestrials already integrated in society and that they look just like us. That's quite a possibility. I read a news article today said that the possibility of other humans in the universe is great. I've never heard that ever before until today.
Right.
I mean,
that's interesting.
Human, not life, humans specifically. So I thought that is quite interesting, and it kind of makes sense anyway.
Absolutely. Now I wanted to ask you something too. The people that disappear in the woods and stuff. That the ones like the missing 411 people. That. Do you think
David
that's attributed to? Yeah. Do you think that's attributed to these abductions?
I think that some of them certainly are. I think that there are certain areas that have phenomena. Oddly, with missing 411 and David's work, most of those are in national parks, and national parks don't have to report into the same form of missing people agencies like on public property and private property. National property has different laws. I think that might have something to do with it. But then we see now a mix of the cryptoids like Bigfoot entering into these equations, saying that they're taking people because some of the very odd and peculiar things are right where say a child went missing, finding a year or a year and a half later, after the area has been thoroughly searched by experts and volunteers, pristine sneakers or something to that effect. That implies something, a knowing, an awareness. Why are the shoes back? Is that saying that we have your child, the child's okay, their shoes are okay? I don't know what it means. Is it just a Bigfoot putting them back? We have no idea. Hence the incredible, mysterious world that we have this great opportunity to live in.
I always wonder with these creatures that people see, because like you say, these tests that the aliens are doing are genetic based. So I always wonder if maybe, I'm not saying a Bigfoot's a mistake, but maybe somewhere along the line in our early evolution, when they were doing these tests on us, there were, accidents. And so you have the Bigfoot, you have the dogmen, and you have this going on.
Yeah, that's definitely a possibility. Another possibility is that Bigfoot evolved beside us with other Erectus and Neanderthal, and that there's just a third human type entity that's still sort of hiding out, just like we still have primitive people on islands right now that they're guarded, they have no interaction, they haven't changed in 10,000 years. And now the fear is, mixing bacteria and viral issues. But yeah, so it's definitely a possibility. Say the dogman, for instance, to me, now this is just speculation and a little bit of instinct, that feels more like Montauk. That feels more like a deep, dark government CIA experiment. And we already know openly the hybrids that our own government has made, putting human DNA into other animals. It's been implied that chimpanzees, I believe the famous one, his name was Tom, and he walked upright and his face was just a little too human for comfort. And it made you feel uneasy that maybe some intelligence was trapped in maybe a nonverbal body. So there's lots of other things. We've grown human ears on rats and cloned, and our own genetic experiments could follow the line of extraterrestrials. And so we can't, point our finger so harshly and say, they did this. We're doing that. We're creating our own cryptoids. I think not only Dogman, but Hellboy was definitely implied that was another creation. And there are several others. The Chupacabra could also have been an escaped one. So when I deal with people who have had reptilian experiences, they say that those also involve humans, and they feel that they're at some form of base deep underground. Sometimes they say it feels like they're under a mountain. And I had it relayed to me by a witness that said there are multiple floors of all sorts of hybrids, and that we've experimented with this. Even our own mythology talks about cyclopses and what's the horse, centurions with half horse, half man. So there's this big hybrid push.
Yes. Now, you also you also like to discuss timelines. Is there something about us being maybe possibly an alternate timeline from where we're supposed to be, that we veered off or something somewhere?
Well, certainly people have written me emails, contacted me, and expressed some very serious timeline shifting. People saying that they don't think we're in the same timeline. And then when we look into mathematics and we see that the 99.9% probability of parallel universes, taking that into account, overlap that now with quantum computers, where they literally say they take their resources from another dimension. The quantum computer is like the difference between a solar powered calculator and a rocket ship. Okay. And that's the difference. And so we use quantum computers, or the D-Wave computer. We also have CERN, who is doing some experiments with the particle, the Large Hadron Particle Collider, smashing them together, trying to simulate the Big Bang Theory. That's not too dangerous, right? and so the theory was that they literally created a tear in 2012.
Wow.
And that there was an overlapping of consciousness, a timeline slip. And there are some people who believe that as we emit our thoughts, making decisions, should I do this or do that, that these begin to play out. Not sure if I buy into that completely. However, I do know that our thoughts create emissions, and these emissions are magnetic in nature and create sort of likes attract likes, sort of cloud consciousness of information that you can draw from. So there is a lot to be said about how our thoughts emit, So I recently worked with an experiencer that maybe you or your audience knows. Her name is Demi Lovato, and she has a new show out on Peacock TV called Unidentified with Demi Lovato. And out in Joshua Tree, out in the desert, they saw some blue light, like a UFO. Later, she experienced non-human entities in her room. I regressed her on TV, but we hooked her up to an EEG so that we could monitor the brainwave, so that we could see the beta brainwave, the consciousness that you and I are communicating in right now. See it moving, dipping, sliding down into the alpha brainwave where the memory is stored. She could draw upon that and express what she was experiencing. Her experience was very positive. The entity is very respectful in nature, asking, do you want to know? Do you want to see? Which is the way it should be. And so we can see that brain waves travel, and we can circumvent that to read them on a graph. And so it's very important, our thoughts, our beliefs. It's not only just the power of our words, but our thoughts too. So people can watch that, and you can, and that's a very positive regression. And you can also, on Vice TV, I regressed somebody in the clinic here in Sacramento, and his experience wasn't quite so friendly, and it was extraordinarily fear-based, and he was terrified. And you can see how we move through those levels and begin to understand how phenomena exists and how it affects our consciousness.
What I find interesting about Demi Lovato and Joshua Tree was that the book that terrified me, I think, I was okay with reading about experiencers and abductions and whatnot. The book that really bothered me was Abduction in the Mojave. And this happened somewhere around Joshua Tree area.
It's a hot spot.
Mojave does. Right. And they had gone, this guy, I don't know if you know the story behind it. This couple had gone camping in a pickup that was a camper, pickup camper. And from what they saw, they could see the ships off in the distance, and it looked like, and then there's a lot, like the reports of maybe they're looking for minerals, the mining thing, where they had these beams coming down from the ships, and they were kind of going back and forth across the earth. And they sat there and watched them, but then they decided to go to bed because they thought maybe they were government planes or whatever, just doing exercises out there. And they, of course, they were abducted. They went home the next day, and this is when they started to see these aliens coming through the walls like ghosts, and they would float in and float out and lift them off the ground and all this. And I had never heard about them being able to come through walls like that, and it shook me. And I thought, as a paranormal investigator, it got me to thinking about, what if what we're hunting as ghosts aren't really ghosts? What if it's these aliens? Because when you think about the reports of them being able to come through walls, and they're in other dimensions, maybe that's what people are seeing. Or maybe even the EVPs, because the EVPs, a lot of them, some are clear, but a lot of them are distorted, and they're really distant. So maybe we're hearing these EVPs over from these aliens that are like in different time than us.
Definitely. And that's the thing. We can't definitively say. Right now, we take our research, we can look for commonalities, we can put groupings together, we can speculate, we can go by our firsthand experiences. I've seen non-human entities. I've been face to face or eye to eye with the short gray and tall gray and other entities as well. But whatever it is that they were trying to do to me just didn't seem to work. I was calm, relaxed, very much like I am now, just being myself. In fact, I was excited and felt that I was psychologically prepared to handle an encounter like that, and that there might be this incredible exchange of information, and maybe something I'd been waiting for my entire life, right? But their intentions were not in alignment with mine. And they knew everything they needed to know already about that. And it didn't go at all the way that I liked. And so it took me a couple of experiences to become empowered enough to prevent them from happening again. There are ways to do that. It's really best to resonate with something that you're more in line to, a higher understanding, extraterrestrials that incorporate those higher frequency emotions like compassion and empathy, love, mercy.
I guess it's like anything else. I mean, we've got good people, we've got not so good people on the earth, we've got yucky people I'll say yucky, you guys, yucky people on the earth. So I would think even the extraterrestrials, they have that too. I mean, there's going to be races that are really cool. There's going to be the races that aren't so cool.
I mean, and really, the only difference is technology. Sometimes their technology appears like magic to us, being able to move through a solid wall. But we all went to 9th grade physics, and we know that even though that sounds and appears solid, that it is not. That it is just moving at a slow atomic level. Now, clearly, they're more advanced and can work with that, making it malleable so that they can move through it. We know it's moving anyway. It's all an illusion, the solid thing. So we need to get past that in our mind and begin to see the way that they're working with it, and demystify it in a way so that we're not so taken by their technology or their feats, what they can do. Although it's pretty impressive with the craft, the morphogenic qualities that it displays, get moving in size and shape, and sometimes one craft, having 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 come out of it, and that's incredible. I actually saw that happen. A little town of Pacifica outside of San Francisco. Had all of the equipment set up, aimed out at the ocean, and sure enough, UFO or unidentified submerged object came up and turned into an unidentified flying object. And as it came up, it hovered, the bottom opened, and multiple smaller ones came out, and I was mesmerized watching it. And I've never been, of course, I see a lot because I seek. And even like Mojave Desert, that is a hot spot. And I think minerals, very specific mineral, is what they're indeed are looking for. And if you want to see a UFO, if you want to have that experience, it really is all about looking up. A couple of weeks ago, after a lot of sessions, I went outside to take a breath. It was in mid-afternoon, and I'm just kind of relaxing and breathing and making sure I'm doing my highest, best job with the people. And I sort of look up into the sky, and it's like this oval white opened, and a UFO is there now in the sky. And I'm like, wow, watching mid-afternoon, clear as can be, and then it shoots across the entire sky. And to me, it felt like maybe as my thoughts are going out, and that my highest desire is for the betterment of the people that I'm working with, that it was acknowledged somehow. And there is, an amazing thing happening. I think that we're living in the most exciting time ever in history. We're seeing our world, which is currently in the higher third dimension, according to NASA. We see that it's changing, and we see that the universe as we know it is expanding. People are just no longer associating themselves with just, oh, this is my country, my planet. We know we're floating in space. We get it. We're floating in space. We're in this incredible spiral galaxy. We're aliens to others.
Sure.
And we're just a little younger, a little less experienced, a little less evolved. But we're taking those giant steps right now with the government, the Pentagon releasing videos like the TikTok videos of the Naval Air Force chasing UFOs. What that does really is it removes the burden of proof from the experiencer. They don't have to prove they saw a UFO. The government said there were UFOs. They're just saying, I saw it too. And that's the difference right now. We're moving into a soft disclosure. People who are normal in every way can be experiencers, broaden, expand the reality, understand the multidimensional aspect of the self, begin to understand your place not only in the world, but perhaps in the universe as well. And that's where we're heading.
Absolutely. Now, when you said earlier, you mentioned that you were able to figure out a way to avoid the negative ETs from taking you. How did you do that?
Well, I had at that time been meditating for around 16 years, 18 really, but 6 of them were not great. It's just still figuring it all out. I started meditating at 12. I started with TM. By the time I was 18, I'd progressed, moving to different forms of meditation. But at this time now, I really was in alignment. And it was my individuality and a declaration really of no, telling them. And then I realized that there are universal laws, and that if they're taking us against our will, they're not supposed to do that. They're tricking us. They're making us think we're dreaming, we're in a sleep state, and we're not saying yes or no. And by not specifically saying no, we're complying. And so we have to specifically say, no, not me, not my bloodline, not my family. But Eisenhower, as you probably know, allowed the abduction of 250,000 people, according to the Eisenhower administration, that he had a meeting with tall whites and non-humans in exchange for some technology. Some of that technology, they said, may have been fiber optics. Other technologies were mentioned as well. But the problem is certain extraterrestrial races live longer than us. They live like 900 to 1100 years. And so if they're abducting somebody, it's going to be through the generations. It's the only way they're going to get a good, clear sampling. And so they continue to do that. We don't really understand their physics or how to manipulate the environment like they do. And so we're not equal in that power yet. But our own personal power, we can tell them no. And they and the reptilians, the Greys and the reptilians, will comply. They're highly regimented. And if you tell them, no, you're outranking them or whatever it is, it's staying within that personal power.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and
Wow, I
there's a
never thought
small
about that.
percentage of people, I think 25% of people have indicated that asking for higher help, such as Jesus, has intervened as well. I have to also say that that's part of it.
Okay. Yeah, this is the first time I'm hearing of somebody being able to say no, essentially, on these things. Because usually when you see the reports or the movies or the TV shows, it's always that they're so shocked by, or they're so mesmerized by what's going on that they can't say no. And this is the first time I've really heard that.
Mesmerized, the right word. They're using that delta wave transmitter
Uh huh.
and creating a compliance. They're violating our fundamental human rights. The more we figure this out, the more we stand up for it, and the more they're going to get the idea and change their tactics.
If somebody thinks they might have been abducted, are there any signs on their body that they could look at?
Absolutely. There are multiple indicators of abduction. Not all of them are going to be definitive, but sometimes after an abduction, people have an increased craving for vitamin C. They'll eat 5 or 6 oranges or drink several glasses of orange juice. This may indicate that there could be some form of decontamination, compromised immune system, and many experiencers share some commonalities with allergies to penicillin, other antibiotics, certain opiates. Now, if you're not sure, you could always check your body for specific bruising, scoop marks, injection wounds. If you feel that you've had an implant, take a magnet, a high-powered magnet to that area on your body and see if you can move it underneath. If that's moving, then there's a good chance that that is an implant. Doesn't mean it's extraterrestrial. But we see like little triangular injection marks or
Mm-hmm.
bruising on the inside of the arms as if you were led somewhere forcefully. Women also indicate bruises on the outside of the hips as if they've been restrained in a way. So all of those could be indicators. In the 80s and 90s, people also had bloody noses. They would wake up. Of course, you have to have multiple ones. Now, glimpsing or dreaming
Mm-hmm.
about UFOs is sometimes an indicator. Not always. Sometimes it just means you're dreaming about UFOs. But if you are, then, and there are other indicators, then you might begin to look at it, sense into
Mm-hmm.
the body, see how you feel. Your body will trigger, just like how you were triggered by the Mojave shooken, you said. I understand
Mm-hmm.
that. Usually that's because there's a resonance in
Mm-hmm.
that energy. Something's familiar, and that's why. So yes, all of those things, even those feelings, a trigger to an image of an extraterrestrial where that it's just like not a normal response.
Mm-hmm.
Also, people will have a hard time sleeping afterwards and begin to stay up late at night or change their schedule as dramatically as possible because they become afraid of the dark.
Mm-hmm.
And if all of a sudden you're 30 and for no other reason you're now afraid of the dark or in alignment with multiple other things, then yeah, you might want to look into that.
Have you come across anybody in your work that has had an implant at all?
Yes, as a matter of fact, a local man, and I have his MRIs from UC Davis. I have 3 complete sheets of brain scans, and it does look like there's an object in the pineal gland. Now, he feels he has 2 other implants on his leg. One kind of was behind the knee, and one was closer to the fold near the groin in his leg. And over the years, they seem to be moving together. And I've filmed them and touched them. And when I try to like corral one, like I put my fingers, it retreats. It seems to move. So I do have those MRIs. And because I'm the president of a nonprofit organization called OPUS, OPUS is the Organization for Paranormal Understanding and Support. He has given me the MRIs, and upon his demise, the implant itself. So he's going to have an autopsy upon his demise and have that removed and turn it over to OPUS so that we can check to see. He's already been checked to see if shrapnel, but there are no entry, no exit wounds, and no other plausible at this point reason. So that's the way that is. So yeah, implants.
And how many times do you remember being taken?
Personally?
Yes.
Yeah. Against my will, only a couple.
Okay.
Other than that, and after that, my personal experiences are really far more spiritual in nature. I sort of have these amazing experiences. The entities that I perceive are sort of this, just sort of a silhouette, an outline of a human in this really soft but brilliant violet color. And I've sensed them, seen them from about the age of maybe 6. And at one point, they've called me by my name and asked me if I wanted to see, and I did. So when I began to have an understanding of the 4th dimensional consciousness thinking, began to see the multidimensional aspect of the human soul. And it's not like they give you anything, right? You sort of earn what you learn. And it's through doing your own emotional work, creating that balance, desire of higher understanding of the existence, our nature, our reality. You know, I did spend years learning how to meditate in a Buddhist temple. And it was because of an out-of-body experience or a very lucid dream. I dreamed the temple and then later came upon it. And they asked me, how did I find them? And I said, well, first I said, why have I come? I said, I've come to meditate. They said, how did you know about us? I said, I dreamed you. And it's there through those learnings of meditation that I've learned how to control my mind. I understood more from those monks about other worlds and non-humans and the 1,000 cases that I've done. It's really about our mind. It's about us. The entities that I've interacted with are such a high vibration. Their voice is so high, feminine, bird-like, rapid, and unconditionally loving. And it's beyond beautiful. And frankly, I think they gave me a spoiler alert as if I saw the future outcome of this beautiful golden planet, as if we really self-corrected, began to maybe raise soldiers. And instead of that, we raised sons and daughters who could be empowered and respectful and loving. So that's really what it's all about. And so whatever relationship we have, human, non-human, it's about respect. It's about unconditional love. It's about our ability to let go of the lower emotional energy that no longer serves us, the things that people hold on to. They are actually like a gravitational force, preventing that natural ascension to a higher illuminated mind.
That was my other question, because you mentioned seeing the Earth in this one state.
Yeah.
Did they at any time warn you about any future events or anything like that? Did you get any impressions like that?
I had gotten those before, but it wasn't from those particular entities. No, not from them. Really just started to understand the ascension process of the human soul. Sorry, I had to switch devices when we first started, and now I just had to plug my phone in.
That's cool. I'm good. What do you have to say to people that think that they might have had an experience?
Well, I mean, if you think you've had an experience and it intrigues you, then you should begin to investigate that. Do a little research, find a hypnotherapist that's qualified. I would get one off the MUFON mental health referral list, or go to opusnetwork.org. We offer a 24-hour-a-day free online support group and other services, referrals, and whatnot.
Okay. And for people that are currently being abducted and they know it, or someone that's afraid to be abducted, what do you say to them if and when it does happen? How should they conduct themselves?
Well, it depends on who's abducting them. If they're being abducted by a reptilian, then by all means, you have to outrank them and tell them they have no authority over you. They're highly regimented and they will comply. They know no different. They're programmed that way. The little grays, they're more artificial intelligence than sentient being, and you're not going to get anywhere with them. The tall grays is who you'll have to say no to. They might try to trick you and say, oh, you have an agreement. And then you tell them that you only will honor an agreement that you have conscious awareness of. And without that, or prove it, ask for a little evidence yourself, because you can be tricked. So there are just so many things. Now, if you're being abducted by a mantis being, mantis and other beings, of course, too, are very hive-minded. They have like a collective consciousness. Our individuality, again, throws them. Like nothing scares them more than not being connected to the hive mind. And you become powerful and strong. So you have to understand, we've got to level the playing field, which is why a lot of my work is trying to understand through witness account how certain extraterrestrial races behave, so that we know how to behave.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense too, to figure that out. It makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Because I mean, if you come face to face with something like a mantis being, and you're scared to death, and you don't know how to behave, then they're going to react however you're behaving.
Right. Well, and now there are also the Archon entities that are parasitic in nature. They attach themselves to the electromagnetic emotional field of the human. And as we emit thought waves, we also emit spikes of emotional energy, especially if we're angry or upset. They can't create negative energy, but they have this opportunity to like amp it up. And so ask yourself, am I behaving, is this the right reaction? Is this in line with the event? Archons have been talked about for thousands of years, about how they attach and create that negative energy. In fact, negative energy is like popcorn. They feed off of it. But the humans have all sorts of little things living on us and in us.
That's scary to think about. That's really
it's true. We have little mites on our eyelashes, and we have bacteria, flora, and fauna in the gut, all living and moving and having a life of their own right inside of us.
That's it. So how can people find you on the web? How can they contact you?
TrueYouHypnotherapy.com. I also have a True You Hypnotherapy Facebook page. I'm at Laurie's True You on Twitter, but I'm not on there a lot because I don't like it. But I'm also on Facebook. And opusnetwork.org, of course.
Okay, cool. I want to thank you for coming tonight. I know it's close to Thanksgiving. People are busy, but I really appreciate you coming on. I learned so much. at some point I'd like to get you on again and talk some more about this stuff.
It's been fun. That would be great. Thank you so much for having me.
Okay. Well, you have a good Thanksgiving holiday.
Everyone have a safe and happy Thanksgiving.
All right. Thank you, Laurie. I appreciate it. Have a good one.
Thank you. Good night.
Bye-bye. Okay, guys, that was pretty fun. Boy, did I learn a lot. Boba Fett, if you're still there, Boba Fett, stay on the chat so we can exchange some information here. I would love to talk with you and stuff and maybe have you on the show if that would work for you. Anyway, tomorrow night is going to be different. I have a pre-tape show for you guys. It's going to be an interesting show. Author Stacy Horn did an interview with me. And if you guys remember a few months back, like last month, this month, maybe this month, I get so many shows. We did the story on Waverly Hills. We did the show on Waverly Hills, and that was, talk about what was going, what treatments people had at Waverly Hills and whatnot, and then the ghosts at Waverly Hills. This is a little similar, except we don't talk about ghosts. What we're talking about is Blackstone's Island in New York. And this was a prison, a hospital, and a mental facility back in the 1800s that was opened up, obviously, on an island outside of New York. And they did some pretty atrocious things to people because back then they didn't have the treatments that they have now. And so Stacy Horn did a bunch of research and wrote a book about it. And so, like I said, we did an interview, and I think you're going to like the interview. So that's going to be tomorrow at 6:30 p.m., and that's going to be on YouTube, and I'm going to have the link up on Facebook as well. But if you want to find the interview, in an easier way, it'll also be posted on the website at www.californiahauntsradio.com. That'll be an easier way to get to it for you guys. It'll be right on the front page of that. So I think that's going to be interesting. I will be in the chat room to talk with you guys, and we could, like I said, we can talk back and forth on that one, but it is a pre-record. Sunday, again, I'm going to be reading from Dickens' Christmas Carol. I'll be back here at 6:30 p.m. Pacific for that. I want to thank everybody for coming. If you liked the show, share it with 5 people. If you hated the show, share it with 5 of your enemies. We are equal opportunity here at California Haunts Radio. Still looking for subscribers on YouTube. So if you like these videos and then you're over on YouTube, press that subscribe button. We want to keep building up our audience and let everybody know about us. If you go back through all the archives and look at the different shows that we've done, even if you go back to our Blog Talk Radio archive, you'll see a bunch of shows that we've done over the last 10, 15 years. I mean, we've done a lot of shows on a lot of topics, and subscribe and follow us, because we got all of December's already booked. We're booking into January. We got some really cool shows coming up for you guys, and we want to keep that happening. We want to keep our audience up and build up our audience. That's what the key is here. Again, if you start Googling California Haunts Radio now, you're going to see us at different podcast networks, which is really fun. Today's the first day I saw that, where we're showing up on Podchaser and we're showing up at different spots, including recently iHeartRadio and TuneIn Radio. So I'm really stoked about that. PayPal.me at California Haunts is flashing down at the bottom of the screen. Reason why that is the California Haunts Paranormal Investigation Team is a nonprofit group. So everything that we do as a team, equipment, whatever else comes out of my pocket, including the show. So I'm paying for the internet, I'm paying for StreamYard, I'm paying for, mics, I'm paying for all this, the lighting, I'm paying for all this other stuff. And, it gets kind of tight after a while. So if you guys could find it in your heart to donate, even $5, that would be cool. I'd really appreciate it. And that's at paypal.me at California Haunts. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and show you Laurie's website, so that, if you want to try and get a hold of her, you can do that. Otherwise, I will see you tomorrow in chat at YouTube. Okay? So here you go. Here's Laurie's website. And that would be trueyouhypnotherapy.com. And here we go, and I will see you tomorrow in chat. Have a good evening.